Right now on the National Weather Desk, a winter storm warning now active for millions of people, bringing heavy snow and gusty winds. We'll take a look at what's about to hit from the Midwest to the Northeast. And where do words like bomb cyclone and atmospheric river actually come from? We sit down with an expert to find out. Plus, a look at what NASA is doing to prepare for their Artemis II mission. And we find out why a ship that sank 150 years ago keeps showing back up on the shores of Lake Michigan.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. We start in New England, where several inches of snow is now on the ground. People are waking up to more snow this morning, and a winter storm warning is currently in effect. Jeff Peterson shows us the situation from Portland, Maine this morning.
I'm along the Maine Turnpike. It's 109 miles long. That's the highway that goes north to south here in the state of Maine. We have had snow falling since late last night into early this morning, and now it's gone from snow to sleet. The driving conditions very slippery, very treacherous in some areas. As you can look at the Maine Turnpike right now, traffic's been lowered to 45 miles per hour. Normally it's 70 along this stretch of road. Now it's been so dangerous. You can see a lot of the trucks that pulled over onto the side. We've counted at least 20 to 30 big rig trucks that have pulled over just to play it safe. And you can look down right here. Look at the snow. Again, we've had 2 storms in the last 4 days in Maine. We had about 6 to 8 inches just last Thursday and Friday, and another one here, of course, Sunday into Monday. Also, let's show you some images from earlier today. We had several slide-offs on the Maine Turnpike. Maine State Police, of course, responding to all those. That the last check, no serious injuries, but again, the driving very treacherous. We'll continue to monitor the storm all day long. For the National Weather Desk, I'm Jeff Peterson.
And now to Cincinnati, where slick roads caused some headaches for drivers after record-breaking snowfall over the weekend. But as Brad Underwood explains, many residents saw the snow as a welcome sight.
All morning long, the snow didn't let up. And for those trying to get around, it proved to be a little challenging.
At one time, we had about 80 active calls for tow trucks.
With cars needing a small push or even metro buses getting stuck, it was an afternoon full of sliding drivers. By 4 p.m., more than 200 calls for service for AAA crews.
There's the challenge of getting people back up on the road, with the snow, and I think we probably received more snow than what, most folks were anticipating.
Well, it was a messy morning. Eventually, the road crews got everything cleared off, creating perfect conditions at Mount Storm Park for either a snowball fight or some downhill action.
Racing each other down the big hill. Yay! Cousins James and Tahir can't get enough of today's fun.
Get to hang out with my cousins and my friends, going sledding and having fun. It's fun, it goes fast, time goes fast.
As for who is faster on a sled,
Woohoo! You always get a head start, but I'm always quicker because I go down on my stomach and I get a run ahead start.
We don't get very many snowfalls in Cincinnati, so we want to take advantage.
And for a look at what weather is ahead, let's turn to meteorologist Brian Vandergraaf.
All right, good morning, Angela. Yeah, all that snow we've been talking about and showing you there is all going to continue to work its way off to the north and east and move out of here. High pressure will nudge into our area tomorrow across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. But our next weather maker already brewing in the south. This will bring some stormy weather through the deep south, a combination of severe storms through portions of the south from Texas, Louisiana into the panhandle of Florida, with some snow even in northern Texas. That storm system will move eastward and eventually bring some unsettled weather to the northeast, maybe even a little bit of snow through the northeast corridor. But the big story will be first the severe weather from New Orleans over to Panama City. And then for the day on Tuesday into Wednesday, that is when we'll be watching the snowfall start to build into the areas across the northeast. Some of those areas could be pretty intense. Angela?
Brian, when heavy snow hits, there are often 2 types: slushy, wet snow, or fluffy, dry snow. But what causes some snow to be wet and some to feel more dry? To find out, we head to meteorologist Natalie Walters in Dayton, Ohio, who posted this explanation on TikTok.
What's the difference between a slushy snow and a fluffy snow? This all has to deal with the temperature profile of the atmosphere. So we're going to talk a little bit about the snow ratio. When temperatures are at or slightly above freezing, you're typically going to have a heavier and wet snow. So for every 1 inch of water, that could bring about 5 inches of snowfall. Now, on the other end, if it's very cold, 1 inch of water could bring up to 20 inches of snow, and that's when you get a fluffier snow. Now, of course, these numbers vary, but for me, I prefer a fluffier snow. What about you?
Not sure. Overall, this season, many parts of the U.S. have not seen much snow. In fact, this January ranks among the top 5 warmest in most places across western Michigan. In Kalamazoo, it's the warmest on record. It's an adjustment for those who like cold weather, sports, and businesses that cater to them. Meteorologist Will Haney spoke with some local business leaders who are hoping things will get back on their usual winter track.
Gordneck Lake in Portage, like we might expect to see it in the middle of winter. This, though, taken last year at the start of February. Here's what the lake looks like today, all open water. Chuck Hodges manages Double L Bait and Tackle in Vicksburg.
Yeah, these are all of our augers.
How many have you sold this year?
I haven't sold any this year. I stocked up on everything just to get it stocked up and ready to go. And then we had 2 days ice so far. I mean, it's crazy.
Hodges says ice fishing equipment, bait, and tackle are his biggest sellers in a typical year. This year, he says sales have slowed to a near halt.
I had guys come in here 3 or 4 days ago with boats. They're going back out in boats. There's no ice, so they got to do something. They like to fish.
On the other side of town, the only snow at the Calhaven Trail State Park is a little pile in the parking lot. This popular snowmobiling spot hasn't seen anything other than walkers and bikers for weeks.
That week prior to Christmas, there were so many phone calls about sleds that we had on the floor.
Sam Kalasa sells snowmobiles at Leaders RPM in Kalamazoo. He says after a snowy November and December, snowmobile interest has since slowed.
Definitely saw a little bit of that start to fade away. Still getting interest, but again, it's more coming from that core group of sledders who are willing to make that long drive up to the UP.
And it's not just our lack of snow that's the problem.
You can shoot around the yard if you have 4 or 5 inches to 6 inches of not a packed base, but if the ground isn't frozen, you're going to be digging into the dirt.
With each passing week lacking prolonged cold and snow, both snowmobilers and ice fishing enthusiasts could be running out of time. Reporting for the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Will Haney.
For a look at something that is not on this earth, we turn to NASA, now preparing for its next Artemis mission and is currently working on putting together its 4-person crew. Holland Menino is in Seattle. She has more on what they are doing to prepare.
Last month, NASA's Orion space capsule splashed down off the coast of California.
Splashdown.
NASA calling its Artemis 1 moon mission a success.
We're pulling out all the avionics that we need to also put on Artemis 2.
Howard Hugh is the Orion program manager. As his team works on Artemis 1 data, they're finalizing plans for Artemis 2 and also working on the Artemis 3 spacecraft simultaneously.
Besides the testing, we're also doing the mission planning. We're walking through the final sets of software development for the mission.
Preparations are also underway for the 4 astronauts who will soon sit in Orion for Artemis 2. But who that will be hasn't been announced yet. We do know that NASA has selected 18 eligible astronauts.
They'll have an opportunity to obviously control and monitor spacecraft health and status, and so it'll be very important for them to get familiar with that. And so that's a big part of what we're going to be doing.
Hugh hopes to get the crew a couple years of training, which will include interacting with the spacecraft on the ground first so they can operate it in space. Once everything is ready, Artemis 2 will launch from Cape Canaveral.
We'll do a checkout orbit, a highly elliptical orbit, so make sure all the systems are working as expected.
Then they will fly around the moon on a 10 to 12-day mission, landing back on Earth. Artemis 2 is a flight test to ensure NASA is ready for the next flight, Artemis 3, when humans will set foot on the moon once again.
And take a look at this new mind-blowing portrait of the Milky Way that reveals more than 3 billion new celestial objects. Folks with the National Science Foundation assembled this portrait over 2 years using a dark energy camera through a telescope in Chile. The camera captured more than 21,000 exposures. They were able to cut through galactic dusk, which had made it difficult to see stars and regions where they formed.